166 years ago, on June 24th, 1859, a Swiss man named Henry Dunant had taken a business trip to the small northern Italian town of Solferino, a town with a modern population of around 2,000 people. It was here that Henry's life would change forever. As he approached, he heard the sound of gunfire, cannons, and men screaming as nearly 300,000 soldiers slaughtered each other in the fields around the town. This battle would be one of the bloodiest battles of the 19th century. Faced with this terrible spectacle, Henry immediately forgot about his business trip as he saw nearly 40,000 people dead or dying around this tiny town. As Henry listened to the cries of young men begging for help as they lay limbless or bleeding out in the ditches or in the streets, he began to search for help, but he found none. Henry was shocked that all of these helpless boys were dying with no one there to help them. No medics, no doctors, nothing. Henry realized that if these soldiers were to live, it would be up to him to save them. Henry quickly got to work and did his best to save as many French, Sardinians, and Austrians as he possibly could. Henry would describe it as,
"The stillness of the night was broken by groans, by stifled sighs of anguish and suffering. Heart-rending voices kept calling for help. Who could ever describe the agonies of that fearful night? When the sun rose on the 25th, it disclosed the most dreadful sights imaginable. Bodies of men and horses covered the battlefield. Corpses were strewn over roads, ditches, ravines, thickets, and fields."
Little did he know that his work that day would be the first day of what is now the largest humanitarian organization on the face of the earth, the Red Cross. After the Battle of Solferino, Henry set out to fix a problem. Unfortunately, Solferino would not be the last battle, and Henry knew that his work at Solferino would be required as long as there was war, but he could not do it alone. Henry returned to his hometown Geneva and wrote a book detailing his horrific experiences at Solferino called A Memory of Solferino. In this book, Henry explained his vision of voluntary relief societies spread around the world that would aid those in need. Henry took this vision to the Swiss government, and Switzerland appointed Henry and 4 others to a committee for the Geneva Society for Public Welfare to examine methods for putting Henry's ideas into action. Henry devoted himself to this mission. He traveled around Europe and pleaded with Europe's governments to send delegates to a conference where they could discuss his ideas and find a solution. 16 countries agreed, and on October 26, 1864, they would meet at the First Geneva Convention. The First Geneva Convention was a massive success. It was the first codified international treaty that covered the sick and wounded soldiers on the battlefield. They agreed to guarantee neutrality to sanitary personnel, to expedite supplies for their use, and to adopt a symbol, a red cross on a field of white. Henry's pursuit of this amazing humanitarian dream came at a cost. As he devoted his full attention to this goal, he neglected his business ventures. As his businesses began to fail, Henry only pushed harder for the Red Cross. By 1867, the once wealthy and influential member of Genevese society was now bankrupt and was forced to leave Geneva and would never return. Henry was thrown into the streets and lived off breadcrumbs. When appearing to the public, Henry would use ink to blacken his coat and chalk to whiten his collar. It was in this condition that Henry faded from the public eye. For the next 20 years, Henry was forgotten while the Red Cross grew. Finally, in 1895, a journalist found Henry extremely ill and living in hospice. When he was rediscovered by this journalist, Henry was celebrated around the world because while he was living in obscurity and struggling to survive, his idea, his dream, the Red Cross, had spread around the world and was saving countless lives. By 1895, the world loved Henry, and they threw awards and money his way. Despite this, Henry never moved from hospice, and he never spent his newfound wealth. Instead, he gave it all away. He gave some to those who cared for him at the hospice, he purchased a bed at the hospice to be given to anyone who needed care but were unable to pay, and he gave the rest to charities in Europe. When Henry passed away in 1910, by his request, there was no funeral, only a burial which no one attended. While the world may have forgotten Henry Dunant, Henry's ideas continue to thrive today, as it saves 5 million lives a year. Henry's idea has given so many the chance to live. In our next video, we're going to look at the Red Cross societies and their specific role and actions in the worst war in human history, World War II.